In this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about subroutines. At this point, we've already covered how to create a subroutine and the difference between private and public subs, but just as a quick reminder, if we create a private subroutine, that means that our subroutine exists only within the specific module it lives in. So if we had multiple modules in our code, like I have here with first module and second module, and we created a private sub in this first module here, we could only reference the private subroutine from within the first module itself. If we tried to call our private subroutine out in our second module, the code would fail to find the routine. Public subroutines, on the other hand, can be called from anywhere in any of your modules or directly from the Excel macros button. Let's talk a little bit about organizing our code. We typically try to break up our code into bite-sized pieces that make sense. We don't want to have super lengthy blocks of code that go on for pages and pages, and one big reason for that is that having smaller pieces of code makes it much easier to debug and to find the cause of any errors you might be getting. What that means is that at the beginning of your project, you typically want to lay out all of the steps you think it will take for you to accomplish your goal. Let's say we have a simple list here in column B. Simple list of our favorite fruit. And we want to copy that data into column D. Change it all to uppercase and highlight it yellow. Now for something this simple, you'd probably be able to do all of this in one subroutine, but the steps for that subroutine would be first, identify the data that we want to copy. Second, change the data to be uppercase. Third, move that data to the new location. And last, highlight the new location. So if we were to break this into different subroutines, it might look something like this. I'll start by opening up one of my modules here. Now I would start with the public subroutine. And this will be the main subroutine that we're going to work out of. So I'll call this the master code. This is the master code, so all of the smaller subroutines are going to roll up into this main subroutine, so we only have to call it out once, but really we'll be able to work with all of the different subroutines that we've built from this single set of code here. So we might have a few different private, smaller subroutines, so we'll say private sub, and we'll call this one make data uppercase. So maybe in this sub, this is where we would actually go in and take the data that we're looking at in column B and turn it into uppercase data. We might have another private sub. We'll call this one move data to new location. And just like the name sounds, we might individually move each piece of data to the new location in that specific subroutine. And lastly, we might have another private sub that says highlight new location. So all of these private subroutines that we just created have a specific purpose for us. They all correspond with one of these steps that we've already laid out over here of what we need to do in order to accomplish our goal. So we can go ahead and in our main routine up at the top, we'll give ourselves some space and we'll type call and then the name of each subroutine, like so. And lastly, highlight new location. So now when we run our full code or our master code, this public sub here, and we hit these call lines, VBA is actually going to jump down to the corresponding subroutine and run that piece of code before returning to our main routine up here. Breaking your code into smaller pieces is great for debugging, but it also helps for when we have very repetitive tasks. Say we have a whole lot of different information that we want to make uppercase and we want to highlight like we do in this column B over here. Instead of typing that piece of code over and over and over again in our main subroutine, we can break that out into its own subroutine and simply call that subroutine instead of manually typing out all of that code. And this means we need to be able to pass some variables between our subroutines so that they can communicate with each other. And that's what we're going to be looking at doing next.